Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Okay, now this episode, we're of course going to be doing something a little different. Well, not even a little different, I've done this before, but for something significantly less serious. But of course, you know, visual episode, 636 subs, and it's not in the thing that you saw, depending on what I decide to end up putting at the beginning of this video. But of course, I made that before the one person subbed, so yeah, I just decided to do that for fun. So anyways, let's get right into the news. First, something that ties directly into the topic. Xiomara Castro has won. She is actually poised to be not only the first female president of Honduras, but also be the next wave of the pink tide. That is actually very interesting. What's even more interesting is the fact that I'm technically a trendsetter because I talked about Xiomara Castro long before anybody else did. Like, I'm seeing like all these people like Humanist Report, Rational National, like all these other people basically saying like, see, we have won in Honduras, and so like, I've been talking about Honduras for a while now. Now everybody else is jumping on that trend. I jumped on this trend so early that I literally predicted Xiomara Castro was going to lose, because polling back then did not really show her in a favorable, like, opinion. It was very expected that she was just going to be another loss, but lo and behold, she pulled it off. Pretty good. Be that as may, she's not going to be in the main topic of this episode because she hasn't been sworn in yet, and we can't really judge anything yet. Speaking of judging, here's another continuation. The DSA has officially responded to the idea of expelling Jamal Bowman. Spoiler alert, they didn't. It says right here, this is why the NPC has decided not to expel Bowman. What they're going to do, we are instead doing the idea of him being like, essentially being censured. Now, this is the thing. Like, I mean, this isn't even technically a censure. They basically decided they will not be endorsing him in the next election until he changes his position on Israel-Palestine, because he's been a little bit too conciliatory to Israel in this situation. Like, they're saying, like, he's been with J Street, a pro-Israel lobby group, which technically, I mean, to be fair, isn't J Street like the cool kids, the cool Israeli kids in the Israel-Palestine situation? They seem to be a lot more friendly. But anyways, essentially, they're basically saying, hey, Jamal will not be endorsed until he changes his mind on this issue. To which I say, I mean, this, again, they're acknowledging, like, he didn't claim to support BDS during his primary, but DSA supported him nonetheless. Bernie Sanders has been endorsed many times and has not really been super pro-Palestinian. And AOC and Rashida Tlaib didn't support BDS in their primaries, but they were supported nonetheless. And they managed to pull through. They even give a little tidbit to the people who really hate AOC. But, essentially what they're saying is they're holding Jamal's feet to the fire. And honestly, I'm okay with that. This situation is the one that makes the most sense. You have the people who endlessly want Jamal Bowman expelled and will not expelling him as an answer. And then there are people who overwhelmingly do not want Jamal Bowman to have any punishment at all. But if this is the situation you want, this is the one that makes the most sense, honestly. You see, because you get to keep Bowman in your ranks for the time being, but also you get to have the right to criticize him. Like, it's fine. It's totally fine to say, hey, Bowman, you kind of screwed up here. Is this a deal breaker for me? Not necessarily. Because, a lot of the people who were on that Naftali Bennett trip were people who I also like Mark Buchan. I think Mondaire Jones was there as well, and Barbara Lee. But it's like, I get why they might be a bit more hesitant than me. They're probably a lot more hardline on this issue than I am. But, I'm just saying, this situation is the best of both worlds. They get to have the right to criticize Jamal Bowman and get the right to have, hold his feet to the fire on an issue. And maybe he'll adapt his situation, or maybe he won't. Of the people who have recently been in there, he still has a good position otherwise. Granted, yes, it's a lot less hardline than other members of the squad, like AOC, Rashida, Corey, and others. But then again, there's also people like Mondaire Jones, who have been a lot more conciliatory to Israel than Jamal Bowman. Bowman is essentially, I wouldn't even say he's me in this situation, because he's not. I wouldn't have voted for the Iron Dome vote if I was a member of Congress. But then again, I wouldn't have voted for any military aid, because I'm a pacifist. But essentially, what I'm saying is he could be turned either way at this point, and this is the best way to approach that. They could have easily just said, yeah, screw you, Jamal Bowman, be gone, and then he probably would have just went further down, the Israel support line. But instead, they're basically saying, okay, Jamal, you're on thin ice, boy, let's go. Okay, I didn't mean to say boy in that way, but you get my point. Anyways, now let's move on to the next story. That was not a racism. I was just saying, boy, like the SpongeBob meme. Anyways, Dale Holness is suing to overturn results of the District 20 primary won by Sheila-Cherfilus McCormick. Former Broward County Mayor Dale Holness has filed a lawsuit to overturn the recent results of the contentious race in District 20's congressional seat. Holness claims Sheila-Cherfilus McCormick is ineligible to hold office. She won the Democratic primary by only 5 votes. Among the complaints listed in the lawsuit, Holness claimed Cherfilus McCormick didn't file proper financial paperwork and essentially bribed voters by promising to give them a monthly check for $1,000 if their annual household income is below $7,500. So, what he's saying is, she ran on an issue, UBI, ergo, she should not be in the seat. What he's actually saying is, wah, me baby, me don't want to accept that I lost. This is stupid. And I hate this. I hate this for many reasons. Because it's always the moderates. It's always the moderates. It's always the moderates that threaten third-party runs. It's always the moderates that endorse the Republicans. It's always moderates that try to change the election results. Like I just talked about Jamal Bowman. Remember, Elliot Engel tried to get his election overturned as well. Like Byron Brown, he was pushing really hard for that write-in candidacy that won him his thing back. Joe Crowley, he basically was like, hey, I won't remove myself on the Working Families Party line. I mean, maybe. I'm not saying vote for me, but I'm just saying I'm on the ballot. Like, this is always them. They're always the ones doing this. The progressives are always the ones who fall in line. They're always the ones that are saying vote for the Democrat. They're always the ones who are just like, let's go on the team. But they're the ones who always get blamed. It's so infuriating. That's why I'm on the route of like third party. Why not? They're gonna yell at us anyways. Might as well do the thing that they say they hate us for. So why not? Anyways, I don't think this is going anywhere. Sheila's going to be in Congress, and she's going to do a pretty decent job, I think. We'll have to wait and see for both of these things. Let's move on to the next story. This is actually an update of a really old story. Remember the Amazon Union? And how that election was blatantly rigged in favor of Amazon? Yeah. Well, it turns out Amazon is going to be forced to do another union vote. A federal labor relations official has ordered a second union election at an Amazon facility in Bessemer, Alabama, after finding that the tech giant interfered and violated workers' labor rights during a high-profile but unsuccessful union drive earlier this year. The decision by the National Labor Relations Board Region 10 Director Lisa Henderson largely rests on the e-commerce's giant's decision to install a mailbox in front of the fulfillment center to collect employees' mail-in ballots for the union election. This is the thing that the SEP really does not like. Like, they hate people mentioning this mailbox because they're like, oh, they installed a mailbox and you're saying that's why the union failed? And it's like, yes. And here's their explanation. Like, well, not the SCP, but like the actual people. By causing the Postal Service to install a cluster mailbox unit, communicating and encouraging employees to cast their ballots using this mailbox, wrapping the mailbox with its slogan, and placing the mailbox at a location where the employees could reasonably believe that they were being surveyed, the employer engaged in objectionable conduct that warrants setting aside the election. So, obviously, them setting up a mailbox in the middle of the freaking fulfillment center, obviously, that was them trying to sway the results in their favor. Like, let's be real. If you're a person and, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a reasonable example. But, like, let's say, you know what, I can't think of a reasonable example. I'm trying to think of, like, a example that a normal person would do, but also trying to think of, like, a really political answer. Like, basically, the one thing that I think of is, like, back in, like, the way early, like, South, after Reconstruction, picture you're like a white Republican, and then like a bunch of like Klansmen are just walking around. They're just like, "So you're gonna vote for the Democrat, right?" You'll be like, "I mean, yeah, sure." Oh well, the voting booth is right here, guys. Let's go vote for the Democrats. And you're like, oh, well, all right then. I guess I'll go. And you know, what are you gonna do? You're surrounded by a bunch of Klansmen. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna vote for the Republican right then and there? No, you're not stupid. You're going to vote for the Democrat. You're going to do the thing that you think that they want you to do. And that's exactly what happened in this Amazon Union. And that's why they're getting another election. And we should be talking about this again, because this is a pretty big thing. Again, if it's successful, we can actually do some pretty decent success. Amazon will be unionized. And we like to see unions. Anyways, let's move on to the next story. CIA files say staffers committed sex crimes involving children. They weren't prosecuted. Good thing this channel is not monetized. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about like the actual story, but then I'm going to talk about like a little bit of the Twitter drama. Okay, so over the past 14 years, the CIA has secretly amassed credible evidence that at least 10 of its employees and contractors committed sexual crimes involving children. Though most of the cases were referred to U.S. attorneys for prosecution, only one of the individuals was ever charged with a crime. Prosecutors sent the rest of the cases back to the CIA to handle internally, meaning few faced any consequences beyond possible loss of their jobs, security clearances. That marks a striking deviation from how sex crimes involving children have been handled at other federal levels, such as Department of Homeland Security and the DEA. CIA insiders say the agency resists prosecution of its staff, a fear the cases will reveal state secrets. Oh boy, this is definitely not a. They're literally saying they'll let them go. They'll let the pedophiles go because they might reveal state secrets. Here's a tip: maybe don't have state secrets. That's an easy thing. Or better yet, don't hire pedophiles. That's not hard, is it not? Okay, so, but the actual story is this is a no-brainer. Like people are gonna be like, the CIA, that people who committed sex crimes against children. It's like, no duh. And when I say no duh, I don't mean like, oh, of course the CIA would do this, but it's like, no duh. All of these positions, every single position in the United States has had at least one pedophile in it. Yeah, like, go to your teachers. There's at least one pedophile teacher. Not, even if it's not in your school's hired at least one pedophile before. They either know or they don't know. There's also, like, church, obviously. Churches have hired a lot of pedophiles before. That's naturally not a good thing. Let me see. Let me think of another one that you might know. Like, even, like, your grocery stores. Grocery stores have hired pedophiles before. Cops. Like, all of these positions are going to naturally garner people who are, like, pedophiles. Like, and especially considering, like, think about it. The CIA, they're, like, the most powerful people in the United States. If anybody can find ways to get children and do this kind of stuff to them, it's going to be the CIA. The CIA has literally everything. They have everything. And as this article clearly states, they have ways to make sure people don't figure it out. They threaten to reveal secrets, and then lo and behold, people won't reveal your secrets. But here's the thing. That is one thing that does bother me. Why doesn't the CIA use their power to kill them? The CIA has done it before. They've killed, like, assets of theirs that they don't like. But here's the thing. This doesn't... I don't know if, like, further in the article it goes into how high these people were on the totem pole. But if I had to take a guess, these would probably be, like, somewhat high-ranking individuals. And all of the ones otherwise, they're, like, down, like, more... Like, the ones who, like, have leftist leanings or something along those lines, they're, like, way further down on the totem pole. The guys on top have all the power. So, naturally, people, they're gonna... Like, naturally, they won't be touched. The children will be, though, unfortunately. But you know what this proves? This proves return matters. This is a CIA asset. Oh, boy. That joke is never gonna get old. But in all seriousness, there was actually a little bit of Twitter drama involving the story. Because the story was being pushed around with people, like, saying, like, so QAnon was real? And it's like, no. I don't even think that was QAnon. Wasn't QAnon accusing, like, the Democrats of being, like, pedos? And I guarantee you, if you look at these CIA people, they're probably going to be Republicans. But anyways, like, there's not much else for me to say, really. CIA touched kids. That sucks. So did the children to the CIA men. That was terrible. That was a terrible joke. I shouldn't really even be joking about this because this is pretty bad. But I will. Because I'm just sick of... Anyways. Speaking of... No, that's not a good transition. Let's just move on to the next story. Peter DeFazio will retire from Congress in latest blow to Democrats. Now, this is Peter DeFazio. In case you don't know, Peter DeFazio is actually a pretty cool member of Congress. He's been a decent, like, left-wing figure for a while now. He's been an Oregon firebrand, of course, as this article says. He leads the House's Transportation Committee. He's been, like, pushing really hard for, like, a good version of the Build Back Better plan. And he's been in Congress for, obviously, 36 years. And he is retiring. Now, this is obviously a... Now, some people say this could be a good thing or a bad thing. Many people argue, of course. Like, much like with John Yarmouth retiring, this could be a bad thing. Why are all these people who are heads of Democratic committees retiring? Why are all these people who have really high positions in Democratic leadership, not even leadership, but, like, people who are heads of committees? Like, this guy was the head of the Transportation Committee. Why would he be retiring? Why would he not think, oh, I run for re-election so I can try and push more for the agenda? Many people are, of course, thinking maybe he sees that there's writing on the walls that Republicans will win, and that's why he's retiring. Many people argue, well, no, it's probably just that he's retiring because he's like actually legitimately planning on retiring because he's old. I think it could be a little bit of both and a little bit of like that. I can think maybe it's a little bit of both. But one other thing that I think is noticeable is there was one theory that I saw that makes somewhat sense, that DeFazio's district was for a long time a swing seat. Even though he was in Congress for 36 years, his seat was on paper a swing seat. A lot of times they did vote for Republican presidents, but DeFazio would still sweep himself in. So a lot of people were thinking that since this new map now has his seat to be pretty Democratic leaning, so they're thinking that he's retiring from the seat now because previously he was their Hail Mary, we don't know if another Democrat can win this seat, but now that another Democrat can win this seat, he was basically just okay, I'm retiring now. Either way, honestly, I'll miss DeFazio. DeFazio's a really good congressman, honestly. If you look at his accomplishments, he's done really well, and he's done a lot of good things. And since he's old, this is probably going to be the last time we're going to see him in politics, so I salute you, DeFazio. See you whenever we see you next. Now, with that out of the way, let's move on to the main topic of this video. A ranking of the pink tide. Now, for those who don't know, the pink tide is, of course, a group of Latin American leftists that generally fit alongside each other. You'll see, generally they have similar viewpoints and such. The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm making a video on them. The video is going to come out this Thursday. And, of course, a bunch of, socialists, Latin Americans, that's a forte I'm kind of interested in. And, that's what we're going to talk about. And we're actually going to rank the leaders. I've put all of the ones that I 100% consider pink tide. All the people, most of the people here. I didn't include, I was actually part of the drama involving this disputed pink tides tier list, this disputed pink tides thing, because honestly, this is stupid. There is no disputed. These are the pink tide. These are not. These are not Latin American countries. They're not pink tide. The end. These guys are not pink tide. They are, many people say, oh, they're Caribbean islands, so they count. No. Pink tide is political wave of perception that leans towards left-wing governments in Latin America. But people say, oh, well, other people talk about other people, oh, yeah, other people think these guys are, left-wingers. It's I don't give a crap. That's left. Well, let me see. Well, it's not they're not left. This guy's a Caribbean island. It's the West Indies. That is not Latin America. Latin America is Latin America. This is not Latin America. These are nothing. But I also included because there are some people who you don't necessarily know if they are pink tide, like Danilo Medina. He's been on and off considered part of the pink tide. And honestly, I can't really find anything that indicates that he is or isn't. Let me see, because his party is a third way party. So it's center to center left. So I don't know about that. Then there are other people that many people, for example, here's Ricardo Lagos. His party is also technically third way, but I never really found anything to indicate that it was third way. And it's still generally regarded as center left, not center. But, anyways, none of that really matters at this point. What matters is we have the pink tide tier list, because I'm jumping on this trend that has died a million years ago. Now, for those who see this isn't actually what you're going to see when you go to the tier list. What you're going to see is your typical A, B, C, D, E, F. Yeah. What the... this is what you're going to see. This is not what you're going to see. You're going to see you're going to see S, A, B, C, D, E, F. And I don't know. But I labeled it this way so that you guys can see my perspectives, because I decided to name it after Latin American, like Mexican leftist people, because why not? That's a good way to make this video a little bit interesting. You know, Zapata, the Zapata level, that of course represents Emiliano Zapata, Lázaro Cárdenas, Cuauhtémoc Cárdenas, Álvaro Obregón, Subcomandante Marcos, Rosario Ibarra, Plutarco Elias Calles, and I don't know. And we're going to be putting all these guys on this tier list and see where the lines go. Now, I have, if you may actually notice one other thing. Wait a minute. This seems alphabetical, but yet these guys are over here. Well, I decided to save these guys for last because a lot of things, particularly these guys, are going to be, these guys are pretty contentious. When I put contentious, this guy, many people already know my feelings on this guy. And these three, they're just really well known. And we'll get to them when we get to them, obviously. But we'll first just have to go through the rest of the guys, see how things pan out. The first guy I gotta rank is Pedro Castillo. Right now I have to put him in I don't know, because honestly, I don't know. The guy is still relatively new. He hasn't done much yet, so I can't really rank him. What I can do is simply say that if he goes down the same route that I think he's going, then I'm not necessarily sure I'll be a fan. I don't know. Maybe he'll surprise me. Maybe he won't. We'll have to wait and see. So anyways, let's just get right into it. If you can tell which ones are my favorites or not favorites based on their placement on the tier list, because I'm pretty sure a lot of you will probably just be like, what? But anyways, yeah, you'll just see when it is. Okay, so first, Alberto Fernandez. Alberto Fernandez is the current president of Argentina. He is really interesting, I think, considered. I'm going to say that for everybody, but he is a relatively interesting person. Honestly, he was pretty hard to think of a tier list. He was really, it's just, he's actually really interesting for another reason, because it seems like a lot of people on, the hard left really don't like him. Which naturally, and when I say hard left, I mean the tanky left. He seems to be they're saying oh, he's the new harbinger of imperialism. And naturally, if they hate him so much, there must be something good about him. And lo and behold, I look into his administration and he's actually done relatively well. He legalized abortion, he's recognized non-binary people. He's done really well, and he was the resurgence of the pink tide in Argentina. He took back Argentina for the left. And one other thing we have to mention about the non-binary thing is that his child is actually a non-binary drag queen, which is really interesting. I think that could potentially be why people don't like him, but I don't really see a problem with him. I'm going to put him in A/Lazaro. He seems like a really interesting guy, and I do generally like him a bit. So anyways, next person is Cristina Fernandez Kirchner. She, I'll be honest, I actually thought that her and Fernandez were related in some capacity. Maybe they were brother or sister, or they were married. She's actually the wife of Nestor Kirchner, another president of Argentina, who, he's all the way over here, she's over there. Let the lovers live together. Anyways, that was stupid. But anyways, she is rather interesting as well, because Fernandez and Nestor are, let's just say, she's not necessarily on their level. I have to put her in Obregón category. Now, there's nothing necessarily against her. It's just that she was okay, but she wasn't as okay or good as others who are in her field. Her administration was a lot more bogged down by like actual government bureaucracy, which kind of made her a lot less ambitious, all things considered. She just couldn't necessarily max up to the expectations that her predecessor was able to levy. So she just didn't manage to get to the point where she could actually do anything that big. And right off the bat, we got a controversial one. Daniel Ortega. Daniel Ortega. I just gotta be upfront. Ortega sucks. I hate Ortega. Ortega is literally just terrible. And I'm saying this point blank. Pedro Castillo, if you don't shake it up, you'll be right there with him. Because Ortega is literally the complete antithesis of the person he once was. He came in with this idea of like, oh yeah, we're gonna crush like the establishment. We're gonna crush conservatism. We're gonna crush all this. But instead, what did he do? He essentially just became the autocratic authoritarian that he once claimed to hate. He has consolidated power to the point where it's like, how can anybody on the left think he's good? Like, he doesn't even support left-wing things anymore. He ran for president with a former Contra as his running mate. And he is, like, become harder right on issues. Like, he didn't move left, he moved right-wing on issues. When he first got elected in the 80s, he was super pro-abortion. Then when he came into office in the 2000s, he hated abortion. This guy is just, like, I honestly don't get how people can like him. He's just not likable at any point of the word. If he had any brains, he should have retired and let us new Sandinista take over and be a new, brighter future. But he's just terrible. This situation in Nicaragua is just so egregious and so obviously bad. I don't really get how anybody could even claim to support him. But of course, it's because they like his conservatism. They like the idea of a Nazbol. They just like it. And that's why he will forever be here. Spoiler alert, even if Pedro Castillo, even if he doesn't do that well, he's not going to be as bad as Ortega. Anyways, next person, Dilma Rousseff. She had a similar, she was the president of Brazil after Lula. And I'll be honest, her and Cristina have pretty much the same problems, but not to the same level. You see, she, Kirchner, Christina Kirchner, I'll give her this. She did still genuinely come off, good, but I do kind of understand why people would not necessarily like her. But Rousseff, she just blatantly did a lot of bad things. She did, a decent amount of corruption. Even if she wasn't, directly involved in it, she allowed that to happen, and she opened the door to Bolsonaro. And that was just, yeah, she was alright otherwise, but that definitely does not bode well for her. So anyways, next person, Fernando Lugo. He was the president of Paraguay. Now, Lugo is really interesting because he did good things like land reform. He pushed for low-income housing. But here's the thing. He's actually more well-known for the impeachment trial that got rid of him than any actual thing that he did. So, since that was basically all he's known for, I'm gonna have to put him in Marcos, which is D tier, because he had ambitions, but didn't pan out. Okay, so the next person is Laurentino Cortizo, who is the current president of Panama. Now, I actually have an interesting story that kind of taints any viewpoint I have on him. I'm basing my whole tier list ranking on this. He hasn't really done much in the time he's been here, but here's why I don't like him. Here's why I'm going to put him in where I'm going to put him. See, for those who don't remember, I did a thingy about, lefty polls and, did, a pink tie tier list poll just to see how other people viewed the left wing on, Latin America. And here's what happened. I got the general amount of support that I did. 8 votes for Nestor. Jose Mujica, 8 votes. This one got 14 votes because it had Chavez in it, I would assume. Okay. Evo Morales got 20 votes. AMLO Zelaya. Okay. Arque Lula. Okay, Rafael Correa Cortezo. 600 votes. 600 votes on the Rafael Correa versus Laurentino Cortizo. I hate to say it, but I think Cortizo has some bots. Literally 600 votes. No offense, but Cortizo, I really do not Cortizo has done nothing, so I don't necessarily see how Cortizo got that many votes. So just because of that, I'm going to have to put him in Ibarra. Essentially, he's done not much. He's just not really that impactful in any grand scheme of things. So anyways, next person, Luis Arce, the current president of Bolivia. Now, here's the thing. He is basically, generally, he's fine. But here's the thing. He hasn't done much yet, but he has done a decent amount. Essentially, what he is a left-wing Latin American Biden. Now, for those who have no clue what that means, let me explain. You see, he was essentially the return to normalcy for Bolivia. Bolivia was so used to having Evo Morales, then they had that brief moment where they didn't have Morales, and then they were like, oh no. Anyways, and then Arce stepped in and basically, I'm going to return to normal, and that's basically what he did. And since he's returning to the normal in the sense of Morales, that boots him up. But since he's basically just returned to normal, he can't go any higher than Obregon because he hasn't done much of his own yet. He hasn't built his own brand yet. He's essentially just the less radical version of Morales. So there's not much else I can say about that. Next one is Alvaro Colrom. He was the president of Guatemala. Now, here's the thing. I actually looked into him. He did pretty good, all things considered. He extended the social programs for the poor and did a lot of generally good things, but he didn't do a lot. I say he did generally a lot of good things. I mean, he did some good things, but there was one thing that doesn't make him go any higher for me, and it's because he opposed the death penalty. Now you might say, is that a bad thing? No. But he actually did not do anything within his power of president to do anything about the death penalty. And he let people get executed because he said it was not his duty to interfere in those cases. When I argue, he should have 100% interfered. He should have tried to help them in any point that he could. So anyways, that just puts him in D. I can't put him any higher than that. Not having backbone to do that can't really help you. So next one is the empanada eater himself, Nicolas Maduro. Oh boy, this is gonna be a tough one. Nicolas Maduro. He's honestly, I might have to make his own tier list because I could honestly put him in a lot of places. I could put him here, I could put him here, I could put him here, I could put him here. I could put him anywhere. I could put him in here because I can't really figure out a position. I could put him in a lot of places. But here's the end all be all. Let me explain with the positions. If I were to judge him based on his political prisoners and all this stuff, I'd put him here. If I were to base him on all the good things that he's done in his administration, you know, like trying to help his country during the COVID pandemic, I would put him here. Or here, even. But I will admit that, like, he has not necessarily been able to live up to the expectations of his predecessor. Now, you could argue, is that because of the sanctions? Yeah. Is that because of all the problems that the economy has been giving him? Yes. But he also hasn't done anything to fix that. And he's done a lot of bad things. However, you should also note that a lot of the things that were levied to him are overblown. Okay. But that doesn't negate the bad things that he actually does? Well, no. I mean, well, maybe not. You see, Maduro's a hard person to put in a position. I mean, I saw this thing recently where he, like, went to Salt Bay's freaking, like, thing while his people were not doing so hot. And yes, you could argue that, yes, it was the sanctions. The sanctions have played their part in that. But Maduro has also played a part. He's the president of Venezuela. You can't exactly claim that he has there's no position that he can do. Like, there's nothing, you can't say there's nothing he could do to fix that. He's the friggin' president of Venezuela, especially considering president of Venezuela is basically code word for I am the supreme leader of Venezuela. Now, you could say, well, I mean, what do you mean? Are you implying that the elections are rigged? No, I'm just saying that objectively, due to Chavez's, like, cult of personality, he has the piece of, it's just in a position where it is always winning, so he can do things, but he's not doing the things that would help. So overall, I'm going to have to put him in D. Weighing in all of the positives and all of the negatives, he narrowly just beats it to D. But if you were to give me, like, two Maduros, like good Maduro, I put good Maduro here and put bad Maduro here. But since they're the same person, I'm going to have to put him here. I know this might be controversial. Actually, it won't be. But just generally say it. Maduro is just not the person that we think he is. Maduro is Maduro. For good and worse, he is who he is. For the good and the bad, this is who he is. So the next person is Martin Torrijos. He was the president of Panama long before Laurentino. He just generally gets in D. Like, honestly, there isn't much to say. Like, some of these guys, they really don't give you a lot of information about them. He just did okay. And that's essentially all he did. He was okay. Okay, so the next person is, I believe, hold on, let's see. I'm trying to get the right people here. This is Salvador. No. This is Mario Funes, I think. Let me check. Mauricio. Let me check. I could be wrong who he is. Mauricio Funes. Yeah, this is Funes. He was the president of El Salvador. He pushed for a lot of economic reforms to help the poor and disadvantaged. He abolished healthcare fees and gave monthly pensions to 4,200 seniors. No, not 4,200. 42,000. Maybe 4,200. No, 4,200. That's how many seniors he gave all this stuff to. He guaranteed shoes, food, and supplies to school kids. He just generally did a lot of good things. Generally, he just did pretty good. Yeah. Lazaro A tier. He's just done a lot of good. and there wasn't many bad things. I think someone claimed that he's like the bankroller to Ortega, but it's like, I mean, that could be a biased source. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, we don't have to wait and see. I could check right now, but I'm not going to because that's not what this video is about. This video is about left-wing pink tie tier list. So anyways, next person, Michele Blanchet. No, not freaking. I keep misremembering her name. It's Michelle Bachelet. She was the president of Chile under the Socialist Party. She was that was the party that Salvador Allende was a member of. She served 2 non-consecutive terms, actually. I think her and Pineda were the first 2 to try and do this under the new thing. She pushed for a lot of social economic reforms, pay equality, abortion, fought for a lot of social issues like gay marriage. And generally, yeah, she was a pretty good member. She was a pretty good president. Put her in Lazaro tier. Okay, so next is Nestor Kirchner. Kirchner, he essentially changed the entirety of Argentinian politics. Argentinian politics was essentially like a right-wing, like, stranglehold, but he basically changed that so that he would, like, so basically, he basically pushed it so that the Judicialist Party, which was the party of Juan Perón, okay, so the weird thing is I have to explain this because the Judicialist Party, which was the party of Juan Perón, one of their former presidents, it was essentially a third positionist party / Big Tent party. It had enough appeal to right-wingers that right-wingers could support it, and it had enough appeal to left-wingers so that lefties would support it. And essentially what happened was Kirchner basically pushed it so that the left-wing faction would be a lot less social democratic and a lot more hardline socialist. And he managed to do that really well. He's even considered like one of like he's considered basically like the 4th musketeer of the pink tide along with these guys, because he was an early leader and an early reformer, and overall generally pretty good president, all things considered. Looking at his policies, he managed to give leftists a big voice in a party that was basically borderline fascist. So yeah, I'm gonna have to put him in Lazaro tier. He's just generally pretty cool. Next one is Otaluma Humala. Let me read that again. Ollanta Humala. He was the president of Peru. And honestly, he barely qualifies as pink tide. Like, there's another president that I thought would qualify more as pink tide, but I guess a lot of people don't necessarily view it that way. But this guy, essentially, he borderlines from E to F, much in the same way he borderlines from pink tide to not pink tide. Many people consider him part of the conservative wave because he essentially pulled a little bit of a Lenin Moreno like switch. He was overall like left-wing when he first ran for office and did really well, but gradually shifted to have a lot more neoliberal economics, and genuinely, that's just not that good. I'm gonna have to put him in F. I'm gonna just have to put him in F because, like, he did shift a lot more to the right, so F he goes. Next one is Jose Pepe Mujica. Mujica is genuinely I've said this about basically everybody here, but he is genuinely interesting because unlike the rest of these guys, Pepe has he's essentially practiced what he's preached. Like, all these guys, let's be real, let's be real again, these guys have had steak dinners, these guys have had, like, nice cars, they've lived in presidential palaces, but Pepe Mujica has actually the most interesting, like, I have to show this because it's just so interesting. Pepe Mujica. Ignore these. These were like part of a experiment. For For those who don't remember, it was for that like anti-Semitism video because I had to do a thing. This is the car that he drives. These are the clothes that he wears. This guy has essentially lived in poverty throughout his entire time in office. What is that picture with him and Noam Chomsky? Oh, that's pretty cool. Let me see. Pepe Mujica house. Let's show you his house. This is where he lives. This is where Pepe Mujica lives. He lives in freaking he lives in poverty. Hold on, you see this? You see this outfit that he's wearing? Like the stupid shirt, the shorts, the sandals. Like you see that outfit? It's like, oh, that's pretty like casual outfit. Yeah. Let me see if I can find it. Pepe Mujica meeting. With those sandals that he wears that to freaking like meetings and stuff. That literally same outfit. He wore that to like whatever meeting this was. The Ministry of Economics. This guy is just... I don't grasp this. And also apparently he's like the only member of like the Pink Tide that's like an actual like full-blown atheist. Like she's agnostic, the rest of them are like Christians. But Pepe, like honestly, even though it's probably 100% for aesthetic purposes, he's gonna be put in Zapata tier. This guy's just like an angel's kiss. And this is actually another funny thing. Apparently, like after he served as president, he actually like became a member of the Senate in Uruguay. I forgot to mention that. That's where he was. That's what his position was. He was president of Uruguay. He served in the Senate and then retired like last year because of the COVID pandemic. And what he said when he resigned was just so hilarious. Like he said, "I love working for the people of Uruguay, but I love not dying more." And there's also this other thing that he did where like there was a guy, like he legalized marijuana in Uruguay, and then like some Vice reporter walked up to him. This is basically me reciting a Michael Brooks story because Michael Brooks said this, where the guy walks up to him, he's like, "Yo, President of Uruguay, can I like smoke a weed in front of you?" And then he's like, go ahead, sure." And he's like, "I'm smoking weed in front of the president of Uruguay. This is pretty cool, man." And then Pepe Mujica's like, "Hold on, bro, I'll be right back in 1 second." And then he walks into his house, and then he pulls out a cigar, and he's like, "This cigar was given to me by Fidel Castro. This is more powerful than marijuana." It's like, dude, Pepe Mujica is just... And another thing I have to give it to him, like, I mean, I know basically this is basically the Pepe Mujica episode, but Pepe Mujica, he's even gone to the point where he's willing to criticize his allies. Like, these people are like his allies, his friends even, if you're that generous. But he's willing to criticize them when need be. Like, when during the Ortega controversy, Pepe Mujica was saying, like, "I want there to be restored peace. I am very saddened by what Ortega is doing, and I believe that we need to negotiate peace and prosperity amongst people." And then when Pedro Castillo won his primary, like when he went to the second round, he told Pedro Castillo on a Zoom call, he literally said, like, "There's only two routes we can go down with this kind of rhetoric, Pedro. We either go down the route of populism and we help our people, or we go down the route of authoritarianism. I hope you do not fall under the latter path." Basically telling him point blank, like, yeah, dude, I'm not willing to not criticize you. This guy don't believe in critical support neither. This guy's like willing to, like, he's willing to be friends and he's willing to ally with you, but he's also willing to hold your feet to the fire. And this is coming from like the frumpy old man. This guy, and final thing I have to say, this guy is the final piece of the puzzle of like, you can't claim that Pepe Mujica is like the next Fidel Castro, the next Hugo. Like, you can't claim he's like this evil authoritarian guy, 'cause look at him. He's a frumpy old man. Anyways, yeah. He's a frumpy old man just going about his day. He looks like he watches El Chavo, like reruns of that on Telemundo. Yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the next person. Rafael Correa. He was the president of Ecuador right before Lenin Moreno. Correa, honestly, he did a lot of good things. He pushed for like the Citizens Revolution, which is a program that he pushed. It did really well, but honestly, he's got some faults. Like, here's one fault. He was apparently Rafael Correa, is one of his big things being a conservative socialist. Like, he's a socially conservative socialist. And that does generally rub me the wrong way. But I mean, you could argue, okay, maybe that's fine. But there's also one thing. Correa, he was not the best on the environment either. Now, granted, a lot of these people, like a lot of the left-wing, like, socialist leaders, generally a lot of their, like, money is made out of using their natural resources. Correa apparently took it one step further. Indigenous people did not really necessarily like him. Like, so much so that a lot of indigenous people supported conservative candidates for president just as a way to curb the idea of Correa getting back into power. And while originally I did have him up here, I think with all that in consideration, I'll have to put him in Cuauhtemoc tier now. Correa, I like him. Like, I mean, and don't get me wrong, like, aside from, like, these two, maybe these guys, I like them. Like, I like all these people. They're all fine in their own ways. But it's just, I can't really say for general that he's that good. He's done good things, he's done bad things. Praise him for the good things, negate him for the bad things. So anyways, let's move on to the next person. Ricardo Lagos. Ricardo Lagos is interesting. I'm gonna have to go back to the freaking thing. Okay. Lagos finger. Ricardo. You're probably very confused at this when I'm typing this, but this will make sense when I show you. This will make sense when I show you. Believe me. That's not what I typed. Liar. Ricardo Lagos finger. Let me explain. Where is it? Dang it. Ricardo Lagos 1988. Is that it? Why you not show me the thing I need? Ricardo Lagos 1938. 1938? That's not, obviously. Okay, so Ricardo Lagos, as you can see by the sash, it's the same one as Bachelet. So he was the president of Chile. In fact, he was the first leftist president of Chile since Pinochet took over. Let me explain. Okay, so this was him. This was actually, like, as the thing suggests, this was in 1988. This was before. Let me see. I'm trying to find the exact image. Where is it? I found this video and I used it for here it is. Okay, so for those who don't know, during the 80s, let me see, I'm trying to remember. Like, during the 80s, Ricardo Lagos, hold on. Is this the one that's in English? Okay, here it is. So basically, he went on a talk show, and this was like because here's what happened. Pinochet, when he was getting older, he was basically putting a bunch of referendums on the table, basically saying like, hey, can you like support, like, can you like tell me if I should continue being president or not? And Ricardo Lagos was essentially on this panel, on this show, to argue that he should that not only should he push for this referendum, but people should rapidly vote for no. And this is what he said. Like, he was basically calling out Pinochet to his face on live TV, like, hey, you're the one who said that you will be doing this. You're the one who said that in this year, you will not be a candidate for president. You're the one who said that you, like right here, let me tell you, Pinochet, remember the day on the plebiscite in 1980, you said President Pinochet will not be a candidate in 1989. The camera is focusing on, I hope. And now he promises the country another 8 years. With torture, with assassinations, with human rights violations. I find it unacceptable that children has as much ambition to pretend to be 25 years in power. Like, see, as you see here, he's like pointing to Chileans on live TV, saying like you gotta vote for this, you gotta support no. And he's saying like here, he's been in silence for 15 years, and you gotta keep talking about it. And that actually took a lot of guts. Like, honestly, that's pretty big. He went on TV and said point blank to Pinochet, like he called him out on live TV, and maybe people like, Lagos, that's very brave of you. When you die, I hope people remember you. Lagos didn't die, and lo and behold, Lagos ended up becoming the first left-wing president of Chile. And I might say, here's the thing, that boots him up here, but he didn't do anything that like impactful to boot him any higher, so B he remains. Okay, so next one is Salvador Sanchez Seren. He was the other president of El Salvador. Now, he really only gets on here for one thing, and that was he made it so that El Salvador was the first nation in the world to ban the mining of metals in order to curb environmental issues. So yeah, get a solid B. B. Next person, Tabre Vasquez. He was the other president of Uruguay, and he and Mujica basically swapped out roles. It was Vasquez, then Mujica, then Vasquez again. And Vasquez did a lot in his administration. He pushed for the recognition of trans people. I think he was actually the first person in the world to do that. But there was one big problem. He did end up wasting a lot of people's time trying to dig for petroleum in Uruguay that wasn't there. So, since I moved Correa down, I think Vasquez had to go down as well. I originally had him up here. Now I think, yeah, that probably will move him down a peg. We're basically going to restructure this list at the end, so bear with us. Next person, Manuel Zelaya. He was the president of Honduras. Here's the thing. Much like these two, well, much like Lugo, he had a lot of ambition, didn't really get to do much. He's more well known for the coup, so he goes in the Marcos tier. And now we've reached these four. I don't know any order to put them in, so here we go. Especially considering, spoilers, you all know where this is going. AMLO, Chavez, Morales, and Lula, all in Zapata rank. Like, honestly, I couldn't put them anywhere else. Just looking at the records, I really couldn't just put them anywhere else. Like, really, honestly, like I said, I really couldn't. So now that we got the tier list down, let's re-rank them. Because, let's see, how do I like these guys compared to the other guys? Humala, you automatically go above Ortega. Ortega's all the way at the bottom. Sorry, bro. Now, the Ibarra tier. Cortizo and Torrijos. I have to put him here and him here. He's just a little bit more egregious than the other ones, all things considered. And the bot thing was just too stupid. Let's see. Him. Yeah, he stays there. Zelaya. Should Zelaya... of them, I'm going to have to put Lugo at the front. Because Lugo, at the very least, did something a lot more impactful. And Zelaya, unfortunately, he just didn't get to the point where he could do any impactful stuff. And with re-ranking of the Cuauhtemoc tier, I'm going to have to put Rusev over here on the end. And you know what? I'm going to have to say I'm probably just going to have to lower her to here. Because it's just this woman let Bolsonaro become president. That'll lower you down, I'm afraid. These three generally, yeah, I think these guys are rightfully in their positions. Longos, I'm going to have to put you at the end of Cuauhtemoc tier because this guy, at the very least, I'm ranking him based on a thing that he did. So, you know what? I'm going to actually put you in... No. No. Okay, so the Lazaro tier. This is where things are going to get a little bit more complicated. Okay, so Kitasen, I'm going to have to put you at the end. Sorry, Kitasen. It's just... No, not Kitasen. Dang it, I'm Fuentes. You see, I'm looking at a thingy at the end. But anyways, Fuentes is at the back anyways. Fernandez, I have to put you at the end. And Bonchalet, I'm going to put you here. It's just nothing against them. It's just how things are. Okay, so all the way at the top. Now it's time to rank these guys. How do we rank the big boys? I'll be honest. Pepe Mujica, since you're aesthetic based, you have to go to the end. I'm sorry, I hate to do this to you, but you're aesthetic based. You're aesthetic based, boy. And I'm going to have to say this again. Well, I'm not going to have to say this again, but AMLO, similarly, is aesthetic based. But generally, he's... No... Okay, this is a bit tricky. This is very tricky. I don't know if I should rank AMLO based on the things that he's doing right now, or if I should put him down because of the fact that he hasn't finished his term yet. I don't know. Either way, these guys are genuinely just... This is the only place I can put him, honestly. Okay, now this is gonna be the controversial part. How do I rank these three? How do these three rank in this position? Genuinely, I'm gonna have to put... This is gonna be very controversial, but I'm gonna have to put Evo above Mujica, but before these two. I might say, what? That's very controversial. I'll have to say it. The reason why is because he kind of screwed himself. I'll be frank, him doing that thing where he basically tried to push himself to be another candidate, he shouldn't have done that. He should have genuinely given that position to someone else. He shouldn't have tried for the next term. He should have been lucky that he got 3 terms. He shouldn't have tried to push for that 4th term. I like Evo, don't get me wrong, but genuinely, I can't really see any reason why he should have done that. Now with that out of the way, now it's time for the final two. how do I rank Lula versus Chavez? Chavez is at an incredibly unfair advantage. He was the guy who kickstarted the pink tide. So let's look over some of his actual policies. Like, one of his big thing was, like, one of his massive things was reducing malnutrition from 21% to 6% in his state. Not in his state, his country. But honestly, I'm gonna have to say this. Lula, Bolsa Familia is all I really have to say. Watch the Gravel Institute on Bolsa Familia. He's just, that, like, genuinely, that's just the better position. Now, anyways, let's see the alignment chart. Let's see how that would work. No, doesn't work. Let me see how would this work? No, this is stupid. I'm not gonna do this. Tier list view. Does it have my tiers? Still have my tiers? Okay, here we go. Yeah, it still has my tiers. So anyways, that's all I have to say. This is my ranking of the pink tide. You can put your own rankings of them below. Let's see who has better rankings. If your rankings are not these, you stink. But no, in all seriousness, post your own rankings below. I'll include a link to this in the description, or you can find it on my Tier Maker account if that's a thing you can do. Genuinely, I'd like to see what other people think, especially considering some of the information that I said in this video you might have known. You might feel like, okay, well, this is a figure that I actually didn't consider previously. Like, for example, who would think Funes or Keren, like these guys, who would think these guys, of all people, pink tide rhetoric is usually revolved around these three and Maduro. So let's see what you guys think. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to find the future video when it comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, check my articles on the Independent Political Report, or consider supporting me on Patreon.